You think a penny is worthless until you find out some of them are selling for insane money. 1-cent coins are hiding rare mistakes, strange variations, and secrets that most people never even notice. And one of them could already be in your pocket right now. If you have a 1985 1-cent coin in your hand right now, you might be looking at something that feels completely ordinary, something you have probably ignored thousands of times in your life, something that most people would never think twice about. But what if I told you that this small, simple penny could actually carry hidden value, hidden history, and in rare cases, surprising collector demand that can turn pocket change into something far more interesting than its face value? Because the truth is, coins like the 1985 1 cent are not just pieces of metal. They are tiny time capsules. They carry the story of the era they were made in, the economic conditions of the time, and even the subtle mistakes that sometimes happen during production. And those small details are exactly what make coin collectors pay attention when everyone else looks away. In 1985, the United States Mint was producing Lincoln cents at an enormous scale. The economy was active, coin circulation was high, and pennies were being used constantly in everyday transactions. Millions upon millions of 1-cent coins were struck that year, which is why most 1985 pennies are still very common today. You can still find them in jars, drawers, old wallets, and even in everyday change. But here is where the story becomes more interesting. Just because something is common does not mean it is always worthless. In the world of coin collecting, condition, rarity, and specific variations, and mint errors can completely change the value of a coin. And the 1985 1-cent coin is a perfect example of that idea in action. At first glance, a 1985 penny looks simple. It features the familiar Abraham Lincoln portrait on the front, a design that has become one of the most iconic images in American coin history. On the reverse side, depending on the specific version, you may see the Lincoln Memorial design, which was used for decades before later design changes in U.S. pennies. It looks normal, familiar, almost forgettable. But collectors don't just look at what a coin is. They look at what a coin could be. One of the most important factors that affects the value of a 1985 1-cent coin is its condition. Most coins in circulation show wear. They are scratched, dull, and have lost their original mint shine. But a coin that has been preserved in near-perfect condition, with sharp details and original luster, can suddenly become much more desirable to collectors. Because in coin collecting, condition is not just cosmetic. It is value. A coin that looks like it was just minted yesterday is far more rare than people realize, especially when it comes to older circulation coins. And that is where the excitement begins, because every 1985 penny you see could potentially fall into a different category depending on how well it was preserved over time. Now let's talk about something even more exciting: mint errors. Mint errors are the unexpected accidents of coin production. They happen when something goes slightly wrong during the minting process. It could be a double strike, where the design appears twice in a shifted position. It could be a misaligned strike, where the image is slightly off-center. It could even be small variations in how the metal was pressed or shaped. And here is the important part: error coins are not planned. They are not intentional. They are mistakes that escaped quality control and entered circulation. And because they are accidental, they are often rare. The 1985 1-cent coin is known among collectors as a coin where certain error varieties do exist, even if they are not extremely common. And whenever an error coin is found in good condition, it immediately becomes more interesting to collectors than a normal version of the same coin. Because now it is not just a penny anymore. It is a mistake frozen in time. Another thing that plays a major role in value is the mint mark. The 1985 penny can come from different mints, and coins with specific mint marks may attract more attention depending on rarity and condition. Even small differences that most people ignore can matter a lot in the collector world. But beyond technical details, there is something else that drives interest in coins like this, and that is curiosity. People love the idea that something they have ignored for years might actually be worth something. That feeling of discovery is what keeps coin collecting alive. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you seen a penny on the ground and walked past it without thinking? How many times has a coin passed through your hands without you ever really looking at it? Now imagine that one of those coins was not ordinary at all, but something special that you completely overlooked. That is the emotional pull of coins like the 1985 1 cent. Now let's talk about value in a realistic way. Most 1985 pennies in normal circulated condition are still worth face value. 1 cent. Nothing more. But once you move into higher grades, especially coins that are well preserved, or coins that have rare mint errors, the value can increase depending on collector demand and quality. Some high-grade examples, especially those that are professionally graded and certified, can attract stronger interest from collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents. And in rare cases where unique characteristics or exceptional preservation come together, prices can go significantly higher than face value. But the real lesson here is not just about money. It is about awareness. Because coins like the 1985 1 cent remind us that value is often hidden in plain sight. It does not always come with warning signs. It does not always look special at first glance. Sometimes, it requires patience, knowledge, and attention to detail to recognize what others ignore. And that is why collectors spend so much time studying coins that most people dismiss in seconds. They understand that history, rarity, and condition can transform even the smallest objects into something meaningful. So the next time you come across a 1985 penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. Check its condition. Notice its details. Because while most will remain ordinary, a few might carry a story that is far more valuable than expected. So before you overlook the next penny you see, remember this story, because coins like the 1985 1 cent are still out there, still circulating, still sitting in jars, drawers, and forgotten collections, quietly waiting for someone to notice what everyone else ignored. And the most surprising part is that most people will never realize what passed through their hands until it is already gone. That is what makes coin collecting so powerful. It is not just about money. It is about discovery, curiosity, and the idea that hidden value can exist in the most unexpected places. A simple penny can carry history, mistakes, and moments from the past that become meaningful only when someone pays attention. So keep your eyes open, stay curious, and never underestimate what looks ordinary, because in the world of coins, ordinary is often just the beginning of something extraordinary. And who knows, the next time you check your change, you might not just find a penny. You might find a story worth remembering. If you have this coin sitting in your pocket change right now, you might be holding something that could completely change your life, something so small that most people would never even look at it twice, something that has passed through millions of hands unnoticed, ignored, and spent without a second thought. Yet today it carries a story that collectors dream about and a value that will shock you to your core. Because what looks like just another ordinary 1 cent coin from 1982 could actually be one of the rarest modern Lincoln pennies ever discovered. And if you are lucky enough to find the right version, you are not just holding a coin. You are holding a hidden treasure that could reach up to $80,000 in value. But before you rush to your pocket or start digging through old jars and drawers, you need to understand why this small copper-looking coin has created such chaos in the collector world, why experts still talk about it with excitement, and why the 1982 D 1 cent coin is not just a penny, but a turning point in American coin history. To understand its value, we have to go back to the early 1980s, a time when the United States Mint was going through a major transition. Inflation had changed the cost of materials, and suddenly producing coins was becoming more expensive than ever before. The humble penny, which had been made mostly of copper for decades, was now becoming a problem. Copper prices were rising fast, and the government had to make a decision that would quietly change the future of coin collecting forever. In 1982, something unusual happened. Instead of producing pennies in just one standard composition, the U.S. Mint produced them in two different metal types. Some were made of mostly copper, and others were made of a cheaper zinc composition coated with a thin layer of copper. This was supposed to be a smooth transition year, a simple cost-saving change that most people would never notice. But what the Mint didn't fully anticipate was that this small transition would create one of the most famous modern coin varieties in history. The 1982 penny exists in multiple variations, and that is where the story becomes truly fascinating. There are large date and small date versions, and there are also copper and zinc versions. Most people never think about these differences, but in the world of coin collecting, these tiny variations can mean the difference between 1 cent and tens of thousands of dollars. Now here is where things start to get really interesting. Among all these combinations, there is a rare version known as the 1982D small date copper penny. This is the coin that collectors hunt for like treasure hunters searching for gold. Why? Because it was never supposed to exist in large numbers. In fact, it is believed that only a very small number were accidentally struck, making it one of the most mysterious modern errors in U.S. coinage. Imagine this for a moment. A coin that was never meant to be widely released somehow entered circulation. It mixed in with billions of ordinary pennies. It rolled through vending machines, cash registers, piggy banks, and grocery store counters, completely unnoticed. And even today, there is a chance, however small, that one of these rare coins is still out there waiting to be discovered. Most people will never notice it. They will see a penny, assume it is worthless, and move on. But a trained eye knows that this tiny coin holds secrets in its design, weight, and mint mark that can completely change its value. The D mint mark is especially important because it tells us the coin was minted in Denver. Millions of pennies were produced there, but only a tiny fraction of them matched the rare combination collectors look for. The difference between a common penny and a valuable one often comes down to something as subtle as the shape of a number, the spacing of letters, or the weight difference that can only be detected with precision. And this is where the excitement builds. Because once you realize that such a valuable mistake exists, every penny suddenly becomes suspicious. Every coin in your hand feels like it could be the one. Collectors often describe the 1982D small date copper penny as a ghost coin because it hides in plain sight. It looks ordinary, it feels ordinary, but in the right condition, it becomes extraordinary. The challenge is that you cannot simply judge it by appearance alone. You have to understand its structure. In 1982, the mint used different dies to strike pennies, and the small date design is slightly thinner and more refined compared to the large date version. The spacing of the numbers in 1982 is noticeably different if you know what to look for. The curves of the digits are more delicate, and the overall appearance is less bold than the large date version. But to an untrained eye, the difference is almost invisible. That is exactly why so many valuable coins are still out there. People simply do not know what they are looking at. Now let's talk about the metal itself, because this is where the real value lies. Most 1982D pennies were made from zinc with a copper coating. These are common and worth only face value in most cases. However, the rare copper versions from the Denver Mint in small date format are something entirely different. Copper pennies from that transitional year weigh more than zinc ones, and this weight difference is one of the key indicators collectors use. A simple scale can sometimes reveal whether a coin is ordinary or potentially worth a fortune. It is a quiet test, but it has changed lives before. There have been stories of people discovering these coins in the most unexpected places. Old coin jars inherited from grandparents, forgotten piggy banks in storage rooms, even loose change from everyday purchases. Each discovery starts the same way: curiosity. Someone notices something slightly different, something unusual, and decides to take a closer look. And that is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Because once confirmed, a genuine 1982D small date copper penny can reach astonishing values depending on its condition. In near-perfect shape, collectors have been known to pay prices that climb into tens of thousands of dollars. Some rare examples, especially those in exceptional mint condition, have been valued even higher, approaching that life-changing $80,000 mark that has made this coin legendary among enthusiasts. But what makes this coin even more fascinating is not just its value, but its mystery. No one knows exactly how many were made. Some experts believe it was a simple minting error during the transition from copper to zinc. Others think it may have been a small experimental batch that accidentally entered circulation. Whatever the truth may be, the result is the same: a coin that defied expectations and became one of the most sought-after modern pennies in existence. As we go deeper into this story, you begin to realize something powerful. Treasure does not always come in the form of gold bars or ancient relics. Sometimes, it is sitting quietly in your pocket, overlooked by everyone, waiting for the right person to recognize its true worth. And right now, we are only scratching the surface of this coin story. There are even more details hidden in its strike quality, minting variations, and collector demand that make it even more valuable than most people imagine. In the next part, we will dive deeper into how to identify this rare penny step by step. what specific features you need to check under light, how professionals authenticate it, and why condition plays such a huge role in determining whether your coin is worth a few cents or a life-changing fortune. Because if you think this story is already surprising, what comes next will make you look at every single penny in your possession completely differently. If you have a 1964 1-cent coin sitting somewhere in your house right now, stop for a moment, because what you are about to hear could completely change the way you look at every single penny you have ever ignored in your life. Because this is not just another old coin story. This is about a piece of history that looks completely ordinary on the surface, but carries a hidden story that collectors still study with excitement, curiosity, and in some cases, pure obsession. Most people think a penny is worthless. Something you toss aside, something that drops under the couch, something you don't even bother to pick up. But the truth is very different. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest detail can turn something common into something extraordinary. And the 1964 1-cent coin is a perfect example of that hidden possibility. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back to the early 1960s, a time when the United States was still producing Lincoln pennies in a way that many people today don't fully realize. The Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for decades, and by 1964, it was one of the most widely used coins in everyday life. Millions upon millions were being minted, especially at the Denver Mint, which is why you will often see the small D mark on coins from this period. That D might look simple, almost meaningless, but in reality, it tells a deeper story. It tells you where the coin was born. It connects it to a specific place, a specific production process, and a specific moment in American economic history. And sometimes, it is exactly these small details that create unexpected value in the collector world. Now here is where things start to become interesting. The year 1964 is not just any random year. It was a turning point for U.S. coinage because it marked the end of an era. Rising silver demand had already changed other coins like dimes and quarters, and even though pennies remained copper-based, the entire coin production system was under pressure. The mint was producing coins at a massive scale, trying to meet demand as the American economy grew rapidly. This high production volume means something important for us today. Most 1964 pennies are extremely common. You can still find them in circulation, old jars, collections, and forgotten boxes. But here is the twist that most people miss. Even in common coins, rare variations, errors, and exceptional conditions can completely transform value. Collectors don't just look at the year. They look at the strike quality, the sharpness of Lincoln's image, the condition of the wheat lines, the color of the copper, and even the tiniest imperfections that most people would never notice. Because in coin collecting, perfection is rare, and rarity creates value. A 1964 1-cent coin in normal circulated condition might only be worth face value or slightly more to collectors. But when you start moving into higher grades, especially coins that look like they were never used, something surprising happens. The value begins to climb, sometimes dramatically, depending on condition and demand. And then there are the error coins. This is where the story becomes truly exciting. Minting errors are like accidents frozen in time. They happen when something goes slightly wrong during production. It could be a double strike, where the design appears twice. It could be a misaligned die, where the image is slightly off-center. It could even be subtle variations in metal composition or striking pressure. The 1964 penny is especially interesting because the Denver Mint was producing coins at extremely high speed during that time. High-speed production increases the chance of small mistakes slipping through unnoticed. And those mistakes, once discovered decades later, become valuable treasures for collectors. Imagine a coin that passed through quality checks, entered circulation, was used in everyday transactions, and survived all those years unnoticed, only to be discovered later as something rare and valuable. That is the magic of coin collecting. It is not just about money, it is about discovery. Now let's talk about what makes collectors excited about this specific penny. One of the key factors is the condition. A 1964 penny that has remained untouched, with sharp details and original shine, is significantly more desirable than one that has been heavily circulated. Coins in mint state condition can attract serious attention from collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents. Color also matters more than most people expect. Copper coins naturally change over time, turning from bright red to deeper brown tones depending on storage conditions. A well-preserved red copper penny from 1964D can be much more valuable than a dull brown one, even if they are technically the same coin. And then there is rarity perception. Even though millions were made, collectors are constantly searching for the best examples. The competition for high-grade coins pushes values higher, especially for coins that have been professionally graded and certified. This is where things get even more interesting, because certified coins are trusted in the collector market. When a coin is evaluated, graded, and sealed by professionals, its authenticity and condition are confirmed. This removes doubt and increases buyer confidence, which directly affects market value. Now, you might be wondering, what is the actual value of a 1964D 1-cent coin? In most cases, a regular circulated penny is still just a penny. But in higher grades, especially in exceptional uncirculated condition, the value can rise significantly. And if the coin has a rare error or comes in near perfect condition, collectors have been known to pay thousands of dollars depending on demand and uniqueness. Certain standout examples can become highly sought after, turning what was once pocket change into something worth a serious amount of money. But here is the real lesson behind this coin, and this is what makes the story powerful. The 1964D penny teaches us that value is not always obvious. Something that looks ordinary might carry hidden significance. Something that people overlook every day might be exactly what collectors are searching for. And right now, there is a real possibility that coins like this are still sitting unnoticed in old collections, drawers, jars, and boxes all around the world. Waiting, silent, forgotten. That is why collectors always say the same thing: never underestimate a penny. Because sometimes the smallest coin tells the biggest story, and sometimes that story is worth far more than anyone ever imagined. And that is exactly what makes coins like the 1964D 1 cent so fascinating. Because they remind us that value is not always loud, it doesn't always shine, and it doesn't always announce itself the moment you see it. Sometimes it is quiet, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with the right knowledge to recognize it. So before you dismiss the next penny you see, take a second look. Because stories like this don't belong only in museums or collector showcases. They often start in the most ordinary places, in a handful of change, in an old jar, or in a coin you almost threw away. And if this video made you realize how powerful everyday objects can be, then you already understand the real message behind it. Opportunity doesn't always come in big forms. Sometimes it is small, simple, and easy to ignore. Stay curious, keep checking your coins, because you never know what might be hiding in your pocket right now.